In this video we are going to discuss the unit vectors in the coordinate plane and how to express vectors by using unit vectors. In the two-dimensional coordinate plane we have two unit vectors. I lies on the x-axis and j lies on the y-axis. They are called as unit vectors because their magnitude is 1. We can express any vector as a combination of unit vectors or as a vector sum of unit vectors. So if you look at the second graph we have in here, if we consider A to be 3 and B to be 4, so we can just look at the x component being 3, so we can say this is 3i, whereas the y component will be 1, 2, 3, 4j. 4j. So we can write as a vector sum of unit vectors as 3i plus 4j. So the idea comes from here. So if we have a vector in a component form, we can write it as a sum of these two vectors. See, we have the x component in one of the vectors and the y component in the other vector. So we can think of those vectors as unit vectors multiplied by scalars as a and b, right? So if we have 1 to 0 and 0 to 1, these are actually the unit vectors we're talking about. 1 to 0 represents I, and 0 to 1 represents j. So it is a times I plus b times j, or as in our example, 3i plus 4j. Let's look at this example. Let DE be the vector with initial point D, which is minus 2 to 3, and the terminal point E, which is 4 to 5. Write DE as a linear combination of the vectors I and j. Now, before we start, we need the component form of this vector DE. To find this, we write the difference in x and y as the coordinates of the vector. So it will be, let's see, 4 plus 2, this becomes plus in here. So it is 6, and 5 minus 3 is 2. Now is the time to write this vector as a linear combination of the vectors I and j, which are called as standard unit vectors. So since we have 6 to 2 as the component form, we can say this is 6i plus 2j. So don't forget, I is the unit vector lying on the x-axis. It is 1 to 0 on x-axis, and j is the same vector which lies on the y-axis. So the idea is simple. If you are given a vector, check if you have the component form. If you don't, calculate the component form. And then, according to the component form, write the vector sum of the unit vectors. That's all. Now is your turn. Okay, write these two vectors as a linear combination of the vectors I and j. Please solve on your notebooks and type your answers in the answer sheet.